Imagine committing the perfect crime. You execute your plan flawlessly. There are no witnesses, there is no evidence. The police have absolutely no idea who did it. You wipe the blood from your hands, you return to your normal life, and society simply moves on. You are completely, unconditionally free. Logically, mathematically, this should be a moment of absolute triumph. You won. You beat the system. You proved that you are smarter than everyone else. But as the days pass, a strange, heavy sensation begins to grow in the pit of your stomach. You stop sleeping. You lose your appetite. Every time a stranger looks at you on the street, you feel a sudden, violent spike of panic. You begin to obsess over tiny, irrelevant details. You start returning to the scene of the crime. You almost want to slip up. Why do human beings do this? Why do criminals who commit the perfect crime inevitably leave a trail of breadcrumbs, practically begging to be caught? Why do people who get away with terrible betrayals end up destroying their own lives years later? The writer Fyodor Dostoevsky answered this question in 1866 in his psychological masterpiece, Crime and Punishment. Dostoevsky realized a terrifying truth about human nature. The human mind is not built to hold a dark secret. If you successfully get away with a terrible act, you do not escape punishment. You simply become your own executioner. Today, we are going to explore the dark psychology of sin, why the human conscience is the ultimate inescapable prison, and why the guilt of getting away with it is infinitely worse than being caught. Let us look into the tragic, feverish mind of Rodion Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov is a brilliant, starving former student living in the filthy, suffocating, disease-ridden slums of St. Petersburg. He's miserable, he's desperate, but more importantly, he's incredibly arrogant. Sitting in his cramped, dark room, he develops a philosophy, a dangerous psychological theory. He divides humanity into two distinct categories. The first category is the ordinary men. These are the masses, the sheep. They exist merely to reproduce, to obey authority, and to follow the laws of society. They are the gears in the machine. The second category is the extraordinary men, the Napoleons, the Caesars, men who are so brilliant, so destined to change the course of history that the laws of traditional morality simply do not apply to them. And of course, Raskolnikov believes deep in his heart that he is an extraordinary man. To prove his theory, to prove that he is a god among insects, he decides to murder a cruel, greedy, elderly pawnbroker. He rationalizes the act perfectly. He strips away all emotion and uses pure, cold logic. He tells himself she is nothing but a parasite, a louse feeding on the poor. By killing her, taking her money, and using it to fund his own brilliance, he is actually doing society a favor. The math is flawless. One useless life taken, thousands of lives potentially saved by his future greatness. So he takes an axe, hides it under his coat, goes to her apartment, and murders her. He escapes. No one sees him. He leaves no trace. He has committed the perfect crime. He has proven his theory. He has crossed the ultimate moral boundary and stepped into the realm of the extraordinary. But the moment the blood washes from his hands, Dostoevsky unleashes absolute psychological hell. Raskolnikov does not feel like Napoleon. He does not feel powerful. He does not feel like a god. Instead, he becomes violently physically ill. He collapses into a delirious fever. He lies in his tiny coffin-like room for days, shaking with uncontrollable paranoia. He hallucinates. He cannot eat. He cannot form a coherent thought. Why? Because his arrogant ego made a fatal miscalculation. He accounted for the police. He accounted for the evidence. He accounted for the logic. But he forgot to account for his own human soul. When you commit a profound transgression, when you lie, betray, or destroy another human being, something shatters deep inside your unconscious mind. Carl Jung believed that human beings are connected by a collective unconscious. We are bound to each other by invisible biological threads of empathy and shared morality. When Raskolnikov brought the axe down, he didn't just kill the pawnbroker. He severed the invisible thread that connected him to the rest of humanity. This is the true, unspeakable horror of getting away with it, the absolute crushing isolation. Raskolnikov can no longer look his loving mother in the eye. He cannot speak to his best friend because he knows if they saw the monster hiding behind his face, if they knew what he had done, they would recoil in absolute disgust. He has exiled himself to an island of his own making. He is surrounded by people, but he has never been more alone. And this psychological isolation breeds a specific torturous sickness. Psychologists call it somatization. It is what happens when the mind cannot process an overwhelming trauma or guilt, so it forces the body to feel it instead. The lies you tell in your mind become sickness in your blood. Dostoevsky was not the only writer to understand this phenomenon. The American writer Edgar Allan Poe explored the exact same psychological horror in his famous story, The Telltale Heart. In Poe's story, a man commits a flawless murder and buries the body beneath the floorboards of his house. The police arrive, but they find nothing. The killer invites them to sit and drink tea right above the hidden corpse. He has won. But then, the killer begins to hear a sound. Thump, 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 thump. It is the sound of the dead man's heart beating beneath the floorboards. It grows louder and louder and louder until the killer is driven so completely insane by the noise that he tears up the floorboards and confesses to the police just to make the sound stop. But the heart under the floorboards wasn't beating. It was the killer's own heart. It was the deafening, inescapable sound of his own conscience. Raskolnikov experiences this exact same auditory and psychological torture. He begins to subconsciously sabotage himself. He wanders the streets of St. Petersburg in a daze. He goes to the police station and taunts the detectives, practically daring them to arrest him. He revisits the bloody apartment and rings the doorbell over and over again, just to experience the terrifying thrill it gave him on the day of the murder. Sigmund Freud would later identify this exact behavioral loop as the death drive, the unconscious biological desire for self-destruction. When a human being carries the unbearable weight of unpunished guilt, the psychological pressure builds until the mind begins to fracture. The brain simply cannot tolerate the cognitive dissonance of wearing the mask of an innocent, polite person while hiding the dark, rotting shadow of a monster underneath. So, the unconscious mind forces the criminal to make mistakes. It forces the cheating spouse to leave their phone unlocked on the table. It forces the liar to mix up their stories in a casual conversation. Deep down, the sinner desperately wants the mask to be ripped off. because as terrifying as the punishment of society might be, it is nothing compared to the absolute exhaustion of holding the mask in place every second of your life. You do not have to be a murderer with an axe to understand Raskolnikov's hell. Look at your own life. Think of the lies you have told, the people you have betrayed in secret, the times you took credit for something you didn't do, or hid a terrible, shameful mistake to save your own reputation. You got away with it. People smiled at you, they praised you, they loved you, but you knew the truth. You knew they were loving a phantom, a persona, a lie. The modern phenomenon of imposter syndrome is a mild reflection of this exact psychological torture. It is the sickening daily dread that one morning everyone will wake up, look at you, and finally realize that you are a fraud. This is the timeless genius of Dostoevsky. He forces us to realize that human morality is not a construct invented by the police, the courts, or the government. It is a biological, psychological imperative wired deeply into our very DNA. The lead police detective in the novel, a brilliant man named Porfiry Petrovich, knows that Raskolnikov is guilty. He knows it almost immediately. But he doesn't arrest him. He doesn't need to. He simply lets Raskolnikov wander the streets, knowing that the boy's own mind will eventually crush him to submission. The detective engages in pure psychological warfare. He tells Raskolnikov, "Have you ever seen a moth near a candle? Well, he will keep circling around me, just like a moth around a candle, until he flies straight into my mouth." But intellect and logic are not what finally breaks Raskolnikov. His logic remains intact. He still believes, even at the end, that the pawnbroker was a parasite. What breaks him is empathy. He meets a young woman named Sonia. She is devastatingly poor, forced into prostitution just to keep her family from starving to death. And yet, despite the horrors she endures every day, her soul remains entirely pure. She bears the suffering of the world without resentment. She is the exact opposite of Raskolnikov's cold, arrogant, calculating intellect. When Raskolnikov finally confesses his crime to Sonia, she does not run away in terror. She weeps for him. She pities the absolute destruction of his soul. She tells him that there is only one way to end the torture. He must go to the crossroads, bow down, and kiss the earth that he has defiled. He must accept his suffering, because only through suffering can he be redeemed. And eventually, the moth flies into the flame. Raskolnikov goes to the public square. He falls to his knees. He kisses the filthy, freezing earth of St. Petersburg, and he confesses his crime to the authorities. He is sent to a brutal, unforgiving labor camp in the freezing wastelands of Siberia. He is stripped of his identity. He loses his freedom. He loses his future. He will spend years breaking rocks in the snow. And yet, for the first time since the murder, he sleeps peacefully. The fever breaks. The paranoia vanishes. The crushing weight on his chest is finally lifted, because the ultimate prison is not made of iron bars or concrete walls or armed guards. The ultimate prison is made of our own memory. And sometimes, the only way to escape the suffocating hell of your own mind is to finally fall to your knees and ask for the chains.